Welcome to the 2025 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jagnani, and today we are diving into emotional intelligence at work, training with heart, where emotions fuel better leadership and stronger teams. And to guide us through this conversation, we have someone who doesn't just train, she transforms. With over 32 years of experience, she's a force of nature in the world of learning and development. A TEDx speaker, certified coach, and EQ assessor, she blends science with storytelling, data with human connection, and strategy with soul. Whether she is mentoring professionals, coaching breast cancer warriors, or shaping leadership mindsets, she does it with boundless energy and an unwavering passion for impact. A three-time national awardee and Mrs. India International Classic 2023, she's inspired audience across the armed forces, public sector enterprises, and global leadership forums. When she's not in the training room, you might find her painting intricate mandalas, performing on stage, or cheering on her daughter, a sport fanatic at HEC Paris. Dr. Anjana, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this is a topic which is very dear to me because I strongly believe emotional awareness, emotional intelligence is not about a training module. It's a mindset. It is something that makes leadership training stick for a longer period of time. So, when leaders understand emotions, they stop managing people and they actually start inspiring them. So it's a very dear topic to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anjana. Can't wait to kick things off. So, to begin with, my first question, Dr. Anjana, is why is emotional intelligence a critical foundation for any impactful training in today's workplace?
Thank you. So, the word foundation that you used is so beautifully positioned and connecting with emotional intelligence. Because emotional intelligence is basically the engine which will create an impact on your training. Remember, how you manage emotions, navigate conflicts actually inspires people. And today's in the fast growing pace, that is something that is really important. Uh, I think it's a beautiful metaphor I would like to use that will probably help EI, emotional intelligence understanding very better. So think of emotional intelligence as the soil. Okay. It's a soil in which you're planting a seed. Now, the seed is nothing else but all your training and every skill development and everything that you do. So, if I have to metaphorically remove the seed, I'm talking about the content, the facilitator, everything is the seed.
Right.
But the soil that I'm talking about is your people. Okay. Now, no matter how fantastic the seed is, no matter how fantastic the facilitator is, but what if the soil is completely parched? What if the soil is not lucrative enough for that seed to grow? What will happen? The plant will never grow, right? So we are talking about when your soil is rich, when your people are self-aware, they are open, they are empathetic. Every training that you deliver gets its roots more binded inside, and the plant grows very beautifully. So,
Right.
in simple words, soil and seed is what emotional intelligence and the people are. That's why it's the foundation.
Sure. That's a beautiful example to start with. Thank you so much for that. It's truly thought-provoking. So I'll move on to the next one, Dr. Anjana, which is how can trainers embed emotional awareness and empathy into leadership development and training, team building programs to say?
Uh, I think that's one thing that any trainer can do is when you connect with your audience, when you're able to, build that relationship with them, communication becomes very easy. So if I had to put it, like 1, 2, 3, Anjana, can you give me like tick, 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 3-step module? A very simple one.
Yeah.
Step one is start with self-awareness. When you reflect tools, you do an emotional check-in, you probably start with a story that prompts them to think something differently and stuff like this. That's when you trigger
Right.
your own self awareness. What am I going to do? Am I really going to do this? Step number two is when we, design our entire content with a lot of empathetic moments, role reversal, perspective shift, understanding what it means for me as a leader.
Right.
Step number three is when you build the real time emotional feedback. When we talk about real time emotional feedback, we are simply talking about journaling, insights, using a self reflective tool, having debriefs, having conversation. That will kind of push this. Because
Right.
when leaders understand emotions, they start inspiring people, and empathy in leadership will start when you start teaching what to do and start by exploring how we feel about what we do.
Right.
Correct. So, if I had to put it in a very simple word, say, for example, I'm delivering a training program and I have to tell people that, hey, listen, you know what? This is how your day is going to look like. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to experience it. People are more prepared with what is happening. But how do I get them to engage? So like typically, if I have a 2-day training program, I would probably go ahead and put a scoreboard. And as simple as that, I would say 100 points for everybody who walks in on time. So you're split into groups. If your group comes in on time, 100 points. To ensure that they don't have digital distractions. I say, phones on silent, but I understand you come from responsible positions. Please pick up your phone, step out, and take your call. I'm okay with that if it's a 1-day program. But if it's a 2-day program, and I have the permission of the leadership that, hey, listen, nobody's going to disturb them. They need to be fully focused. I simply say, phone's on silent. If your phone rings, even if it's an alarm, it's minus 250 points. But you know what? The fun part is, if Anjana sees her phone and Neha catches her seeing her phone, Neha's team gets 350 points, Anjana's team gets minus 250. So there is that fun element to engage. And I have realized that people across levels forget they have a digital gadget. So
Right.
a lot of engagement can also happen in your training programs when you understand. And then somebody comes and says, hey, you know what, my boss called me. That's the reason I walked in late. Like, okay, you could have told your boss. It also teaches them the fact that, can I stand for myself? Am I working for my boss? Am I working for my organization? Am I working for my team? At this point of time, what am I working for? And that also makes a lot of difference.
Sure, sure. So to summarize, Dr. Anjana, there is self-awareness, which is critical. There is design content with empathy. Perspective shift has to be kept in focus. Last but not the least, real-time emotional feedback plays a critical role. And I loved how you mentioned about how engagement can trigger people, how it's a two-way interaction that can make a training more meaningful and more valued. So thank you so much. So moving on to my next question, which is what role does storytelling play in deepening emotional connection and driving retention in training sessions?
So, Neha, if you have to take a piece of paper, okay, and I give you a picture, and I tell you, you have to stick this picture to this.
Hmm.
How will you stick it? What would you use?
I would use a glue and just stick.
Exactly. Correct? Glue or a glue stick or a sellotape and everything.
Yeah.
Storytelling is the emotional glue in a training.
Okay.
It will bind your knowledge to the memory through what we call as emotional connect, the feelings when you tell a story. Correct? So, when you talk about stories, it is something which is very dear to me. So I've been a story blogger all my life. And, a lot of my stories are even put up in the website of HRAI. I realized one thing. If I had to tell you something, maybe it will not work. But if I tell it in a form of a story, it will. Let's give you a very quick, simple example.
Yeah.
I want my participants that whatever they learn, they have to apply it after the training because the success of the training depends on that. Now, one, I'll tell them, okay, you know what? I want you to make quick notes. What are the small things, changes you would like to make and stuff like this? Please go ahead and do that. Vis-a-vis, I tell a small story. I say, you know what? Once there was a conversation between a mama camel and a baby camel. So the baby camel looked at mama camel and said, Mama, I'm totally confused. So mama asked, why? What happened? I said, why do we have this hump on our back? Oh, we have a hump so that we can store food and water whenever we need it. Ah, then why do we have long eyelashes? Oh, we have long eyelashes so that whenever there's a sandstorm, the sand doesn't enter our eyes. Then why do we have long legs? Oh, we have long legs because we have to walk miles in the desert. Mama, We have a hump to store food, long eyelashes so that sand doesn't enter, long legs to walk miles. Then why do we live in the zoo? And then I add it up by saying, that's exactly what I want you all to decide at the start of the program. You're going to learn a lot of things in this program, which means you're going to have a hump, you're going to have long eyelashes, you're going to have long legs. But to have a choice whether you want to live in the desert or the zoo is your choice. Tomorrow, when you go back, you're going to go back to the same fraternity, the same group of people who have not been a part of this room, which means they are living in the zoo. With the knowledge skill you have acquired here, do you want to continue living with them or do you want to take them also to the desert by sharing the tools that you have? 5 minutes, reflect back, write down just one line. I am the camel of dash, the zoo or the desert. And remember, whatever you write here, every time you have to write, how are you going to become the camel of the desert? Because everybody else is in the zoo. They are having a gala time. It's going to be difficult for you. They will get food. You have to fetch. They will get water. You will have to fetch. They will be protected with the sandstorm. You will have to take care. They will not have to walk miles. You will have to. How are you going to fight yourself to be there? After every module, I want you to write down 3 things you will do to become the camel of the desert, if you choose to become one. Otherwise, I'm okay. Let's have fun. Be the camel of the zoo. Be here, learn, eat good food. Tomorrow, go back and do the same thing. What transformed is in your hands, not in mine.
Oh, quite an eye-opening example, Dr. Anjana. Truly, very thought-provoking, and it also highlights how storytelling can bring training to life. It's not just training; it's how you can relate to these simple examples. And beautiful, Dr. Anjana. Thank you. I'll move on to the next question, which is how can organizations use experiential and outbound learning to build emotionally resilient and collaborative teams?
Okay. So now we'll do a quick exercise. Okay. You can see me, right? So you
Yes.
have to do exactly what I tell you to do.
Okay.
Okay. Show me your hands like this. Super. Touch your chin. Did you realize what you did? I
Yeah.
said touch your chin. But
Yes.
this
Yes.
is what we did. And this is what everybody does.
Yeah.
This is what everybody does. Why? Because people see more, feel more, and listen less. So when we talk about experiential learning, when we talk about it as a tool, experiential learning or outbound learning, people say one thing. They understand the reality. But when it gets into actual doing, life is very different. They get very competitive. I was facilitating an outbound training program for a tech company. It is all about, they had to cross a broken bridge, but they had limited resources, limited things, how they had to do. They had to adapt to different kind of changes at different point of times. And that's when they actually realized that life is not simple. In fact, just yesterday, I was in Chennai. I was delivering a training program and, the topic, of course, was very intense. This was for like the senior most leadership team of an organization. And it was on building trust because they said they're all very beautiful silos, you know, excellent leaders. But individually, they work very strongly. Each team is like a powerhouse. But an organization is not about teams, right? An organization is about these leaders coming together and working. But they lack that trust and collaboration with each other. And we played a very simple activity, which is called Win As Much As You Can. And we had a scorecard where we gave 4 envelopes to 4 teams and they had to, you know, use those props. So that's one thing that I realized that when you touch and feel something, you remember it more
Right.
rather than, just metaphorically telling you. So, 4 teams, they had 4 envelopes. Each envelope had a triangle, which was one red color, one black color. And then there was a scorecard. So they had to strategize and put one triangle in the envelope. And the scoreboard said if 4 teams put red,
Mm.
everybody gets a minus 100. But
Okay.
if 4 teams put black,
Mm.
everybody gets a plus 100. If
Okay.
there are 3 reds and 1 black, then the black gets minus 300. If there are 2 reds, 2 black, black gets minus 200, while the red is always positive.
Okay.
Okay. This is the scoreboard I gave them and they had to put. You'll be surprised. I had first 3 rounds, everybody putting only reds. Now, my question was, when everybody puts a black, you get a plus 100. Why would you put a red? And then it says, no, the game said win as much as you can. And I very clearly said, team HRAI, win as much as you can. Although you were four teams, but my, saying was, team HRAI, win as much as you can. Round two, let's start putting our votes.
Right.
And I very conveniently forgot to listen to team HRAI. I only listen to team win as much as you can. So when you are individual runners, you will not. And then we had multiple, rounds in between where they had to go out. Only the captains had to strategize. They had to come up with something and they'll all agree. They come back. Trust was broken. All this happened. Surprising part was there were 10 rounds. By the time we reached the eighth round, when and different times different people would go out to strategize. So once only captains went, one captain and vice captain went, once nominated members of the team went, once everybody who was not gone went. So they were all different people who were having conversations with different people, and they would all come back and said, okay, black, 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 we'll all put back. But there was invariably somebody who put a red. Now when that happened first time, that trust which was broken was so powerful that towards the end, when the eighth round came, when they all went out to discuss, people who were sitting inside thought one person will be murdered today. It was like a fight for things. And they all came back. And of course, at the end of it, and then we did something called as a gratitude circle. We made everybody sit in a circle. And we asked them what happened. What was it all about? It was just a game. But in a game, if you can be so serious, how would it be when you do it in real life? Now take the learning from here and tell me what different are you going to do at workplace? And then give a message to everybody in the team. Neha, I'm getting goosebumps, when I'm telling you this, but we had the senior leadership apologize to everybody in the room. There was no qualms of, I am a senior vice president. Why am I even apologizing to anyone? I'm a director. No. They said, okay, you know what? Guys, I think we did a mistake. I'm sorry. But I honestly did not think it from that perspective. But I think, yes, if we all work together, we'll win as a team. That was day one. Day two, I had to struggle to keep these guys away. They were bonded as if they were one right from day one. And that is definitely going to trickle down when we move further ahead. So experiential learning is always when you do. So, I always give this analogy as a very simple example. Can you learn swimming online? Till you don't get in the water, you really don't know how to swim. So till you don't do it, you really don't know what you are.
Right.
And that's why experiential learning, storytelling, outbound activities, I feel they are the DNA of any training programs.
Sure, absolutely, Dr. Anna. It beautifully highlights how creating those real world examples, creating that ecosystem where people are in an activity so intense, they get that sense of achievement, that sense of collective growth. And at the end of it, I think that's what really matters. So thank you so much. That was beautiful. This brings us to the last question, Dr. Anjana, which is what practical methods can be used to measure the long-term emotional and behavioral shifts, resulting from a soft skill training?
So, you know what? I always, I love to play with acronyms. So, what we are looking for is a shift. I'm going to use shift as an acronym.
Okay.
So, to measure a long term emotional or a behavioral shift, especially when we talk about softer aspects, see, technical, everybody can learn. Okay. I may have the technical know how, but if I don't know how to put it forward, like I always say this, somebody who scores a 90%, 99% may not be the best teacher. A teacher could be somebody who's probably at a 50, 60, 80%, but they know how to put their point across is very important. So when we talk about this shift, the first one is self-awareness. What was it before the training? What was it after the training? So when they all come in, what did they come in with? What kind of mindset? So, when we do expectation setting and stuff like this, I also do something called as a moodometer, where I tell them, what are you feeling right now? There's a chart put over there called the moodometer for entry. Write down what you're feeling today. So they all come with different words over there. This is where we started. Then I do a moodometer post lunch. and I do a moodometer at the end of the session. The same people, you can see the transition, what has happened. So self-assessment works. S. H is about habit tracking. So, how am I monitoring changes on a daily basis in the behaviors that I have? So, what I ask them to do is a simple exercise called journaling. What would I typically do in this situation, or what would I have done? And if I'm consciously taking a step back and I'm doing something different, how am I doing it? It's a simple example. Typically I would go ahead and I would tell my team exactly what to do. And when the team comes up with a suggestion, I will always challenge them and tell them, oh, this is not going to work because I tried this before. No. So now what I've started doing is when the team comes up with a suggestion, instead of telling them what not to do, I ask them, okay, but what if this happens? Then how are you going to deal with it? Which is basically my apprehension, but I put it across as a question. So I am tracking my own habit on what changes am I making in myself. That's step number 2, SH. I talks about the impact, the stories that I'm telling, real time examples that I'm bringing in the room. What impact these stories are going to create. So again, they track back and they say, oh, you know what? I remember. So every time they remember, camel of the desert, I'm becoming a zoo, I'm becoming a zoo. Can they constantly tell the story to themselves? What am I promising myself and where am I heading towards? And that will help them create that needle movement between the peers. So go back and tell the story to your peers and tell them, I've decided to be the camel of the desert. And the moment I become the camel of the zoo, I'll have somebody in my team who says, hey, zoo, become a desert now. And then I suddenly hit it. So impact that stories can create. And then also it is very important that I have a feedback loop, which is what the F stands for. It could be a feedback, which is a 360-degree feedback. It could be a 30, 60, 90-day feedback that you can have. Decide your mechanism. How, as my transformation, are people seeing that change that I'm making? But that is only going to happen when I announce it. Great. When I announce it and I tell Neha, you know what? This particular masterclass, we're going to make it slightly different. I'm going to use acronym only in the end, not in the start. Now, if I started with acronym, maybe in the middle, Neha will say, oh, I thought you were supposed to tell stories and acronym was only for one question. Suddenly it realizes, right? The feedback loop. Neha, how did it go? What do you think? Did I use a lot of acronyms? Am I actually asking very specific feedback? Because only then will I know how I'm strengthening my own core skill. And the last but not the least is when we talk about performance indicators. So we're talking about the team KPIs, a lot of engagement, retention, or collaboration. Let's look for patterns in that. How engaging have I become in my team? So I have my standard KPIs that I work with. But when I talk about behavioral shift KPIs, myself, what am I tracking? How engaged is my team? So when I tell them something, I ask Neha, I need this report. Yeah, I want to know how many people listen to my broadcast. Now, simple. Neha says, okay, 1 minute, go to Excel, download sheet. She sends it to me. Zero engagement. Why? She just did what I asked. Then I asked Neha, who is an engaged Neha now, and now I ask her to get me this. Now, what Neha does is she downloads, she does an analysis, she does a summary, and she tells Anjana, feedback is great, but you know what? These are the places where people wanted to hear more about.
Right.
That means she's engaged totally. So, when we use a shift model, it's not because of any other reason, but it's because real change in soft skills isn't what people remember. Real change in soft skills, it's what they repeat one after the other again and again and again. That's where sustainability happens.
Sure. Beautiful, Dr. Anjana. I think the SHIFT acronym was very comprehensive and it shows that how the training programs can have a lasting impact beyond just, limited to the training session. So thank you so much. This brings us to the end of this masterclass, and I thank you on behalf of HRAI for delivering such a comprehensive masterclass today. It truly gave us some practical insights, for us to lead with empathy and impact. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll just have a quick note to our listeners. If you enjoyed today's conversation, do not forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until we meet next time, lead with heart and keep inspiring change. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Anjana.